Good morning. Once again, we're here with another quote. This one by the height being by one Francois de la Rochefoucauld. And he said back in the early 1600s that the height of cleverness is to be able to conceal it. In many ways, this is a very true thought. In the end, depending on exactly what the cleverness is, it's kind of a common thing, especially when you look at copywriting or any sort of idea that could possibly get out there. And basically, what you're looking at is if you put an idea out there, if you don't conceal it in some way, don't obscure it, what have you, then your idea can much more ably get out there on the open market, if you would. This happened actually quite significantly in the early black powder days, because somebody would invent something, somebody would buy it, they'd take it to the next town where there's a whole bunch of guys that can, produce an item, a high value item, and during this time there's a whole bunch of war going on, so there's demand, and you'd have entire towns turning out, the next latest greatest artillery or the next latest and greatest pistol or what have you. Because the thing to realize is that in many ways, a lot of the early towns actually had more to do with producing items. It's one of the reasons why if you go to old towns in Europe, you'll see this is the Tinker Street, or this is the Tailor Street, or you'll see something like that if they have their old place name. But it was because this person would do the start, then you would do the next phase of the process, and then you'd go do the next phase of the process, and so on and so forth. And besides that, another way to look at it is you can only stick so much humanity in one area. The way we broke that essentially is we have basically refrigeration is what in a very large way changed how we live and where we can live, because essentially in the United States, the Central Plains, the Great Plains, is our main grain cereal crop producing region, and in reality, we do a huge amount of export business. And it's been said that you can't really screw that up, and the reason you can't screw that up simply has to do with the Mississippi River. That said, let's get back onto our quote. So it was very common to hide things behind artistry. Part of this was because so much time was spent to make an object. It's that thing where to build a sword, to build a basic sword might take you 90% of the time. To make a truly fancy sword might take you another 10% of whatever that time was. So monetary-wise, basically legacy and everything else, it's much better to go ahead and conceal what you're doing, especially if you can conceal what you're doing in a bit of art. It's like, oh, we don't know why it works. Oh, no, I made it like that because I had to have this, picture or statue, or I wanted to curve this way because it's more beautiful, or because we were doing this, that, or that, this with it, or because it honors some saint. So, no, I mean, even today, the internet is out there. Basically, if you look at copyright law, the whole idea behind it is that you now have a record of what people have done, and they can have monetary recompense for doing it, and therefore they're encouraged to do it more and more often. So you have this huge buildup, because less time is wasted on doing things to conceal it. And we can simply say, hey, here it is, I've registered it, everything's proper, you can't steal it from me. And because of that, and because those laws are so robust now, at least in the Western world, China's a totally different thing, and they have a totally different manner of thought on that. You could almost say that a lot of the modern cybersecurity, or keeping things in the States and not necessarily sending certain things to China, is very much because of, can we conceal it? Well, we can conceal it in the American system, or at least in the American system, or the Western system, it's secured against it, and exploitation. You know, it's like I have to remember there was this one engineer I spoke to, and one of his friends was the one who patented the DVD or VHS to DVD recording system. Now he didn't actually invent it. It was somewhere in Japan, but he went to China, had a factory, patented it. So when the large companies from Japan tried to import, like Sony and what have you, they actually had to pay him royalties. So this is one of those things where, yes, you want to conceal it, and then finally go, hey, here it is for the open world. So very, very much, most of our cleverness is still in concealing things, in many ways, which is unfortunate.